At some point today, or maybe yesterday, or maybe in a moment you have been quietly carrying for weeks, something made your eyes fill with water. Maybe it was a song. Maybe it was a memory that arrived without warning. Maybe it was something so small. A kind word from a stranger, a scene in a film, a photograph you stumbled across, that you felt almost embarrassed by your own reaction. You cried, or you nearly cried, or you felt that particular tightening in your throat. That means the tears are there, just waiting. And here is what almost no one ever asks. Why? Not why in the emotional sense, why in the biological sense? Why does the human body, when confronted with grief or joy or overwhelming beauty, respond by producing liquid from its eyes? What is the actual mechanism? What purpose does it serve? And why, out of every species on this planet, does only one do it? The real answer is far stranger than you have been told, and it reaches back to a moment in human history that may have changed everything about who we became. Start with the basic biology. You have 3 types of tear glands. One produces the thin, oily layer that keeps your eyes from drying out. Those are called basal tears, and they flow constantly without you ever noticing. A second type fires when something irritates your eye. Smoke, dust, a cut onion, and those are called reflex tears. They exist purely to flush out debris and protect the surface of your eye. Both of those types make immediate evolutionary sense. Every animal with eyes produces something similar. The mechanism is ancient, shared, practical. But there is a third type, and this is where things get strange. Emotional tears. Tears that appear not because your eye is dry or irritated, but because you feel something. These tears are chemically different from the other 2 types. Biochemist William Frey spent years analyzing human tears in the 1980s and found that emotional tears contain higher concentrations of stress hormones, specifically ACTH, a hormone directly linked to the body's stress response, than either basal or reflex tears. They also contain higher levels of manganese, a mineral associated with mood regulation. In other words, when you cry because you are overwhelmed, your body is not simply leaking. It is actively expelling stress chemistry through your tears. Frey proposed what became known as the biochemical theory of crying, the idea that emotional tears serve a detoxification function, physically removing stress-related compounds from the body. This is why people so often report feeling genuinely calmer after crying, not just emotionally quieter, physically different. The chemistry has literally changed. But this still does not explain why emotional tears exist at all. Detoxification happens through other mechanisms too. The kidneys, sweat. So why did humans, and only humans, evolve a system that routes emotional stress hormones out through the eyes? And why does it happen in front of other people? This is where evolutionary psychologist Oren Hasson's work becomes important. Hasson argued that emotional crying is fundamentally a social signal. Not an accident of biology, not a side effect of stress, but a deliberate evolutionary development that serves a specific purpose in human relationships. Think about what crying does to the people around you. It is almost impossible to see someone cry and feel nothing. Something in you responds. You move closer, or you want to. You soften. Your aggression, if you had any, tends to recede. You start asking what is wrong. Crying in the presence of another person is one of the most powerful social triggers in the human repertoire. It reliably produces care, attention, and a suspension of hostility. Hasson called this the honest signal theory of crying. Because tears, unlike words, are extremely difficult to fake convincingly. You can say you are sad, you can perform sadness, but producing real tears on command, with the reddening around the eyes, the change in breathing, the involuntary shifts in facial expression, that is genuinely hard to fake. Which means tears function as a credible, hard-to-counterfeit signal of genuine distress. In a social species, and humans are among the most intensely social creatures that have ever existed. The ability to broadcast authentic distress and reliably receive help in return would have been an enormous survival advantage. Crying says, I am vulnerable right now. I am not a threat. I need support. And it says all of this in a language that bypasses rational thought and go straight to something older, something automatic in the person watching. But there is still a piece missing, because that explains why crying works as a signal. It does not explain why we cry when we are completely alone, when no one is watching, when there is no social benefit to be gained. Neuroscientist Ad Vingerhoots at Tilburg University has spent decades studying the psycholo.